Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the budget study sessions. This is June 4th, 2008. All the councilors are here. I heard from Councilor Stephen Hay. He will be here a bit late due to some other commitments. The mayor will be here a bit late due to award presentations at a high school graduation. Our first budget will be the fire department. I will quickly read over some numbers and then ask the chief if he'd like to make a presentation. Following his presentation, we will open it up to questions from the floor. The Fitchburg Fire Department budget, fiscal 09, as submitted, $5,215,368, as compared to a request of $5,365,196, and in FY09, $6,025,886. Budget consists of 1 chief, 4 deputies, 2 captains, 16 lieutenants, 46 firefighters, 1 mechanic, 1 arson director, 1 clerical head clerk, and 7/10 of a senior clerk. On the fire other expense, the request for FY09 was $55,150. The mayor put in $55,150. The FY08 expense was $55,000. Fire equipment and repairs for FY09, the chief requested $5,536,346. The mayor is requesting $5,386,518, and the fiscal year 508, which we are wrapping up, the revised number was $190,886. Chief, we'd like to afford you the opportunity to make an opening statement to the City Council prior to our questioning. Chief Kevin Roy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd just like to take 1 minute to personally thank all the councilors that attended the calling hours for my dad a few weeks back. It was greatly appreciated by our family, and it was noted by a lot of people that you all came together as a unit and a group, and it was very nice. A lot of us have been friends for many years, and we appreciated that. Thank you. As far as our budget goes, just open quickly with a few statements. The mission statement of the Fitchburg Fire Department is committed to protecting the property and the environment by providing essential emergency and non-emergency services professionally with pride and dedication. We're broken into 6 divisions: the Fire Prevention Division, the Maintenance Division, the Fire Alarm Division, the Emergency Operations Division, which is our firefighting force, Training and Emergency Management, and the Administrative Division. The current budget calls for 84 uniformed personnel, 2 civilian clerks, 1 civilian mechanic. We operate 3 engine companies out of 3 stations, 1 ladder company, 1 rescue company, which is an ambulance. In the past year, we've had some positive accomplishments. Last July, with the help of this council and the mayor and the firefighters union, we prevented laying off 7 firefighters by instituting an ambulance service, bringing in $400,000 in new revenue to the city. That same contract at the ambulance provided 1 paramedic ambulance at the Oak Hill station and 1 paramedic ambulance at the Central station. We received a donation of about $11,000 gift from the Friends of Cogsall for an all-terrain vehicle that's come in very handy. We've already used it at some fires. We reorganized our scuba diving team and regionalized with Lunenburg, Leominster, Shirley for our divers. We've improved the training and equipment for that group, and that program is running along very well. Captain Beliveau has taken over that division. We submitted 2 Fire Act grants under the federal government, 1 for a new radio system, which most of you all know is badly needed. That's about a $625,000 grant, and we submitted for a new pumper at about $300,000. We haven't heard back on either one of those grants. The period should be opening up soon for awarding those grants. The 09 budget priorities are to increase firefighter line staffing to a minimum of 16 firefighters per shift, further pursue grants to replace equipment and radios, and to replace a 25-year-old engine company and a 28-year-old ladder company that are currently outdated and need to be replaced. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Councilor Joseph?
Chief, with the upcoming proposed staff reductions, what does that do to the Summer Street Fire Station?
As the budget is proposed now, Councilor, the station would be closed most of the time. When I say most of the time, it'd be probably 80 to 85% of the time. At the current budget that we have right before us, we'd have 17 firefighters on a shift maximum, and on 2 shifts, and 16 on 2 shifts. We're allowed to have 3 people out on vacation or personal, and that would drop us down to 14 and 13, respectively, on the 2 different shifts. Under those circumstances, we would not be able to man that engine company at Engine 1, and we would be shutting it down when we don't have the staffing, which would be quite frequently.
I mean, to the people of Ward 6 that, you know, and rely on that for the safety, and also up into Ward 5, I find that extremely distressing. I mean, we need that fire station to remain open more than 15% of the time. And I just hope that as we go through here, somehow we find that 16th person or whatever it takes to put that staffing on to man that fire station. I mean, that's an integral part of our health and safety in Ward 6 area, and I just think that we need to make sure that that fire station stays open.
Councilor, I agree with you, and it's not only the south end of town that's concerning. This causes a huge logistical problem for our department. That is also now, with Engine 3 being shut down last year, is the engine that comes into center of town, lays the hydrant line, is the backup truck, and also comes in here when Engine 4 is out on calls, which is frequently. It's also going to change our mutual aid policy, where I won't be able to send one of our 2 engines out of town to cover somebody else's town. It just wouldn't make any sense to do. It would be unsafe for the city. So I agree with you. 5 years ago, we shut down Ladder 2. We shut down Engine 3 last year, and we've got nowhere else to go, basically. We're at the end of our rope, and I agree. It's a logistical problem for the whole city, but in particular for the south end.
Well, not only that, but I mean, even our fire insurance and all the other things that are associated with the fire protection in that area, and the distance from a fire station to your house are all going to be affected for the property owners. Even their fire insurance will start going up because of the closure of a fire station. So I just see that this is a definite need to, a priority to make sure we maintain that station in some capacity.
Council, as you know, even through all the cuts all the years, I've maintained that station, tried to maintain it, but honestly, we have nowhere else to go without more funding.
Thank you.
Chief, could you, for the benefit of the entire council and those people who may be watching this proceeding, give us the borders, northeast, south, and west of what Engine 1 covers?
Yes, Engine 1 covers all the way over to basically the Birchwood Manor Nursing Home on John Fitch Highway, Will Thompson Way. It covers all outlying areas of Marshall Road, all that area. It comes up into basically St. Bernard's High School, and the biggest areas that it protect are those important areas in South Fitchburg near Market Street, Sheridan Street, Leyte Road project, Normandy Road, Meadowbrook Village, Crestview Lane, and all the new development out at the end of Winoosknock Road. But as I said, Councilor, that's their first run response, so they're into those areas quick, which has been important to us. One of the things with the lack of manning is we've tried to maintain the 3 stations, so at least we get 3 firefighters in there making a quick hit on a fire, and keep it in the bedroom, keep it in the kitchen, you know, keep it to the kitchen cabinets. This is going to extend our response time into that area, where Engine 1 would get there in a couple of minutes. You're going to be waiting for Engine 4 coming out of headquarters. That's an extended period of time. So not only anymore is it important for that area, which is very important for that area, but they're also our second dual engine uptown. So with that truck gone, we're going to be waiting for Engine 2 to come down from Clegon, which is a bigger time delay, into the downtown area, which you folks know how tight the neighborhoods are and the 3-deckers are. I mean, we've seen it this past Valentine's Day. We had a situation that showed me what we're going to look like July 1st. We had a house fire at 266 Beach Street. Fire was blowing out when we arrived. Our trucks were actually on another call at Memorial School, carbon monoxide call. We got over there. We had a fire on the first floor blowing out, 3-decker next door, and guys made a good hit on the first floor. We had a report of a woman trapped on the 3rd floor. Ladder crew went to the 3rd floor to find the trapped woman under a lot of heat and smoke. Engine 1 was coming up, which is our 3rd engine, and got hung up behind a cruiser that was stuck on Beach Street. Engine 1 didn't get to the fire for 15 minutes. Their job was to go to the 2nd floor and check for extension. They never got there to do that. So the fire extended to the second floor. We didn't know it, blew out a window, almost trapped our ladder crew on the third floor, and we did all we could to save the house next door at the end of the day. So that's the type of scenario that we're going to be looking at all the time come July 1st.
Thank you. Councilor Di Natale.
Thank you. Chief, what is there are 12 positions that are not going to be filled, retained through attrition. And there are 2 additional positions that are the youngest people in the force, two firefighters that are fairly new recruits that are also set to be let go with this budget as it stands.
That's correct.
14 total. What is the starting salary, what does it cost on average for a new firefighter right out of the academy to join the ranks?
Currently, the base salary, I think, is right around $40,000.
I've had many discussions with you, and I understand that the fire department has had about $2 million cut over several years. This budget is another 13%. I've been stressing to all departments that, for me, with all these budgets, it's about allocation and reallocation within budgets. The sticky subject for me is always involving contracts with all unions and departments. And I will just state that the work that these men do is tremendous, and they should be commended. Unfortunately, in this day that we face now, and after many discussions with you, you're going to take out another truck, you're going to stop another station from working practically full-time, even half-time. You had to let a truck go last year. We're down to 2 engines and 1 ladder for 40,000 people. So for me, the issue is personnel, and also you've mentioned about the concern of the age average of the department. It's very hard for you to retain younger people on the force when these cuts get instituted. Knowing all those facts, and also knowing that you've told me that there's already one town that has already told you they're not going to cover us when we go out, and there are other towns and cities threatening to do the same, I believe your budget is now at code red. And it being at code red, I look at some line items in here, and it's not always a great issue to bring up, but I look at the contractual items. And FY08, longevity, clothing allowance, incentives, higher classification, pager rate, recall stipend, sick time buyback accounted for $1.3 million of this year's budget, $1.3 million. Next year, it's going to account for $1.1 million. At the $45,000 a man salary, if that number were restructured due to contract restructuring, which I think all city unions should be doing, if that number were reduced in half to, let's say, $650,000, and this is just a comment I'm making, with that figure of what new recruits would cost, and since you need bodies, which you surely need, and you need to increase the youth, that would stave off the 14 people you're losing. If the contract restructuring called for a reduction in half of those line items, you'd keep all your guys. And I'm also trying to push for new hires. When we have new hires in these departments, there should be a completely set of new rules for them across the board. But that's just something I want to point out. I point it out because I want you to get those 14 guys back, obviously, and I want you to get more because the NFPA says that we need 17 minimum. And at the position we're in right now, I don't consider your budget bare bones either. I look through your expenditures. You're not leaving anything wide open. But when I look at those line items, it's tough for me to hear you say that we're losing 14 guys and you're going to take on another truck, another station, when there is an avenue we could take, but it's almost impossible to get through, to keep those 14 guys, and all those 14 guys would be brand-new people. They'd be youth that would really shoot up your youth rate, and it would relieve the burden. It's just a comment I wanted to make based on the numbers I see. If not now, I hope in the future all departments, and this doesn't just go for the fire, all departments look at restructuring for new hires at the very least. So it doesn't impact the veterans, but it does impact the new people. But even now, it's exorbitant to me, given the fact that you've got to cut another truck and another station, which really concerns me, given all the other facts. Thank you.
If I just speak to that, we have opened a dialogue with the union about new employees, and they have been receptive to talking about that. And there's no question, Council, anybody can look at this whole budget that's $99 million, and if you cut everybody's benefits in half, we'd be Martha's Vineyard. So, if that's the way that, you'd like to go, then go across the board, we'd really be in good shape.
I'm not so much talking, Chief, about benefits like health care. I'm talking more about the incentives.
I understand.
The same goes with the police. Councilor DiMartino mentioned last week, there's several $100,000 in their budget for safe driver incentive and firearm safety, and there's over $775,000 in your budget for incentives.
I understand, Councilman.
If we didn't lose any guys, I wouldn't say anything. That's why I'm bringing it up. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, a little bit about the ambulance and where that stands at this time. We had a one-year contract that's coming up to its end, and an anticipated renewal.
Yeah, Councilor, we actually met with the mayor on it today. We have got a meeting tomorrow with MedStar. They are interested in renewing the contract, and I believe the mayor is. I'm not going to speak for her in my conversation, so we'll start a negotiation with them tomorrow.
So as far as deployment of men for the ambulance, that probably won't change.
I can't answer that now. We'd have to come to the agreement with MedStar, go back to the union, and see if we can work similar to what we did last year.
Okay, because it's negotiations, I guess I can't ask many more questions.
Or you could ask the mayor, because it's really the mayor's negotiation with MedStar. So she's the one that's going to be sitting, certainly we'll be with her, but she's the one that has to sign the contract.
Is there anything, given what we've done through the last year, is there anything in terms of any regret that you may have with going that way and getting the ambulance for the department?
No, I think that, there's always a little bug we've been working out. We've been at it about 10 months now. Our guys have worked out very well. They've done a great job. I think the anticipation was that we knew there was going to be some retirements, and we'd start replacing some of our people by now and moving some of the older guys that are on that ambulance. I think that's been a major problem. But I think that overall, we're fortunate that those guys, we've had over 33 working fires during that time frame. The ambulance crews were available for all of them, our ambulance crews, so they acted as firefighters also. They picked up a lot of the, it used to be an engine company and ambulance out of headquarters. Now we send the 2 ambulances to get to our 4-man level that we need on them. So overall, I think the system's worked out good. There's been a few bugs, but, our biggest concern was bringing MedStar's people into our buildings. Really hasn't been a problem. Our people fit in well with them, and they fit in well with us. So overall, it's been a pretty good relationship. I think the biggest problem's been that we haven't brought on some new people. Hopefully still will.
Chief, have we taken into consideration the amount of money that we've collected on the runs from Rescue 3? I know that we were lagging quite a bit.
Yeah, and Council, as you know, you've talked to me quite a bit on that issue, and we've talked to MedStar. We'll be talking to them again tomorrow on that. We get our money regardless, but they're up to almost 300,000 collected, but they billed out over 800,000. That's not a very good collection rate, and we brought that to their attention, and we're looking into that.
I know that Councilor Hay and myself, prior to my being on the council, served on the original ambulance committee, and there was a rosy picture painted by the collection agency for Leominster. I would hope that if we're not collecting the money like we should, then we probably should take a look at that other collection agency.
I agree, Council. Our goal has always been, as you know, is to run our own ambulance in an enterprise fund. That's still our goal, but we're still early on in the process here, and I think that we need to have that discussion with MedStar. There are some reasons that are legitimate. As I explained to you, we didn't get started till August. They had to apply to the state for new collection numbers through Medicare, Medicaid, welfare. Those numbers didn't come in until the beginning of October, so they didn't get bills out till that time, and then there's always a lagging time with insurance payments. So there has some reasons, but I agree with you, that collection rate should be higher.
I would just like to make another comment with regard to what Councilor DiNatale said. I'm not sure that I totally agree with the councilor with regard to the budget, because the overall general budget is down 13%. I think the problem that the councilor has and other councilors have is that the personnel budget and the things that go along with the salaries for firefighters has been a thorn in people's sides. However, I want to remind everybody that these are negotiated items. This is an administrative function. This isn't something that the council can do except either reject or accept the budget. The work on the personnel side, where the most expense is done by the negotiating team. And I think that if there is a concern about the negotiations, then it should be made known to the mayor and to the negotiating team. I think the council basically has to stay out of it because we can't sit at the table, although we have asked on several occasions in the previous administration if at least one councilor could sit in on negotiations, not have a vote, but listen to what's going on. But I think that cannot happen because of the law. But I think it's not our responsibility to rip apart the contract unless there is some major problems. And we leave that up to our Human Resources Director, our attorney, and the mayor. And then it comes to us for discussion. Councilor DiMartino.
I don't believe we're trying to rip any union apart. I asked the police what they would give up to save the people that were being let go, and I was told that by Captain Taskett, that he would not ask the people to take 1 penny less. I would also ask the chief what would he be willing to give up to save the 2 young men, or if men or women, I'm not sure what they are, what they could do. I think we're not asking to break a contract, we're asking them to come to save people who are losing their jobs. And I think it's more of a request. We're not trying to break a union. We don't have a right to break the union. We're just requesting them to reconsider what's happening and to give up something to save a couple of people who are losing their jobs. That's all we were doing. And I will also ask everyone who comes before me to do that. Not just the police, and we will ask the fire. And they can say yes or no, as the police said no. So I just feel that that's what I'm trying to do. I understand my boundaries. I have no right to question the union. I have no right to do any of it. I'm only asking them to give up a little to save part of their family. I told the police that I see them as a family. I see the fire as a family. And if 2 of their children were losing their job, could we do something to save them? And that's all I asked. And I continue to ask that. And I will ask that for everybody who comes before me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Joseph.
Just a follow-up on the ambulance question. I know that we have housed the ambulance in the fire department, but do we have, if hypothetically an ambulance person can't lift a person into the ambulance because they're not large enough, or the person is too large to lift into the ambulance for that ambulance person, which is a MedStar person, do they call the fire department for backup, or do they call another MedStar person for backup?
If it's one of our 3 dedicated trucks, they'll call, and we'll either send another ambulance or an engine company.
Why? It's their business, right? They're making...
In most cases, because MedStar's ambulance is going to have to come from Leominster or somewhere else, it's about patient care, Counselor. You got to get the person to the hospital. So first concern is the patient care, making sure, not waiting for an ambulance to come from who knows where, when we've got people right here, either in fire stations or nearby, that can go and give an assist on that.
Is that something that we would have done before MedStar was, when it was
We've
Patriot?
always done that.
So if it was Patriot?
Yeah, that's pretty much done universally. Usually, if there's another MedStar truck, in other words, if one of the MedStar ambulances needs for a lift assist and they need help, if there's another ambulance available, we'll send it. If there's not, it'll be one of our trucks. Usually, it's better because we've got 3 guys on the engine, so you usually need everybody
Okay.
in a lot of cases.
Councilor Di Natale.
Thank you. About the ambulance, is it safe to say that it would be better if we had a fully functioning service in terms of where we have complete control over it and MedStar's out of the picture? Whether we operate our own ambulance service or we don't operate it at all? I mean, we have 1 truck, we have 1 ambulance right now.
Yes.
But the goal, as you stated, for the enterprise, is that what your goal you're saying is that you want to have all the ambulances that we can have?
No, we'd still need ALS unless we went to ALS service, which is a little, quite a bit more advanced, more training, more drugs that are needed to be stored, more protocols by the state. I see that as down the road. I mean, fire departments are doing it all over the state, all over the country. But, you know, this is, like I say, kind of the infancy for us. Yeah, would we like to work into that? Absolutely. But first, we'd like to get our own BLS truck up and working. That's what we can run at this level right now.
And as I understand it, the contract that we agreed to last year, if MedStar makes more than the $400,000, they keep that in their pocket,
As it
correct?
stands right now, yes.
So if you said we've billed $800,000,
Correct.
and it only cost $360 to operate that one ambulance,
Roughly 360, 400, something.
so you could make the argument that off that one BLS, if we had full operation of it, full control of that, we would have made $400,000 this year. If we
Not
didn't,
necessarily, Councilman. What the problem is that you can bill out whatever you want. You want to send a $700 bill, send a $700 bill. But a lot of the welfare, Medicare, Medicaid are all set rates. So they will only pay X number of dollars. They'll pay you $300 for that call. Now, MedStar then goes back after the individual if they have a second insurance or paying out of their pocket. So it's just because you can't always look at the billing rate as you're going to collect 100% of the billing rate. That doesn't happen in reality. However, in talking to other fire departments and other people who run ambulances, their collection rate is low.
I'm just curious, what did you say Leominster has? They have 2 city-run ambulances?
Correct. They have one that they man full-time, goes out the door first. They're doing about 3,000 transports a year at the BLS level. So in commensurate, we're a little bit low on our collection, or I should say MedStar's a little low in their collections. That should be over the $400,000 figure. And it may be after the first year. I mean, we all knew there was a startup time lag, and, you know, we're looking at each month. It is picking up slowly, but I still think it should be picking up faster than it is.
And lastly, Chief, I just want to ask you if you could elaborate to those that are watching. I mean, there's a lot of people that ask me about mutual aid. They don't really understand. They think that the mutual aid means that the trucks come and assist with the fires only, but I don't think they realize that they're also there to cover the station while your guys are all out doing the job.
Yeah, that wasn't the intent of mutual aid as it was founded. The intent of mutual aid was to come help another town at a fire when they had a big fire. Over the years, due to budget cuts, we've come on where we have them covering our stations now. That isn't the intent of it, and especially now, and that's the reason that one of the towns that stopped coming here, it was the ladder truck that was coming from West Fitchburg. We used that truck a lot since we put Ladder 2 out of service. Well, finally, they said, look, we're not doing that anymore. We're not paying our people to cover your city. That's your job.
How high has the mutual aid increased since 2003?
I don't know since 2003. I can tell you that since it increased on the ladder truck wise since 2003 because we lost a ladder truck in 2003. So the ladder trucks, the number of ladder trucks coming in increased greatly, and that was mainly Westminster. Since last August, it's 5 to 1. We're calling for mutual aid pieces 5 times more than we're giving them out. And it was probably 2 to 1, maybe even 3 to 1. I doubt it. Back to 2000.
In this most recent fire that we read in the paper from South Street,
Yep.
how many cities and towns assisted us with that one fire?
2 companies from Leominster at the fire, and 3 other towns covered our stations.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Caddy?
Chief, what is the average age of the fire department going to be?
It was 48 years old about a month ago. It may have dropped a little because some old guys retired. We've had a lot of people leaving lately. But it's in the upper 40s now.
Two budget items to me seem a little unrealistic. The first one is the sick time buyback, and that's for people who retire, and it's in the contract.
That's correct.
You're budgeted 0.
Correct.
I believe last year you told me that when a fireman retires, it takes you 2 to 3 months of not replacing that person in order to pay for their sick time buyback.
Yeah, depending on how much sick time they had.
So even if you don't have anticipated retirements, if someone were to retire, then you have one person less and you're going to wait 2 to 3 months again to pay for the sick time buyback before you can put another officer on.
Currently, Council, I'm not even sure if somebody retires, we're going to replace them for any reason right now, is where we stand. I don't know.
And I'm just pointing that out. And then the second one that seems to be unreasonable is your overtime account was cut by $25,000. Your force is being cut, and the reality is if your force is being cut, your overtime is going to go up. It's not going to go down 25,000. So those two line items really seem to be unrealistic to me, anyway.
They are, Counselor, you're right.
The other question I would have is, I know that the fire department had a meeting with the city's insurance, health insurance. I, in fact, changed my insurance recently, and my premium dropped $200 a pay period, which meant the city's premium dropped $600 a pay period. I believe, if my figures were right, there were 225 people in the city that have Blue Cross Blue Shield Master Medical. Out of that 225 people, only 17 of us dropped down to an HMO. In the treasurer's office, they were trying to sell this HMO, saying that this was a better insurance than it was the old Blue Cross Blue Shield Master Medical. I don't know what your members of the fire department did, but it seems to me with 1,400 or 1,600 employees in the city, one of the biggest ways to save right now is through insurance. If people could get on board with a lesser, not a lesser plan, but a more affordable plan, which could be a better plan, there could be an awful lot of money saved in the total budget, which could help your department and other departments. I don't think, even though there was a scheduled meeting, I don't think there was enough emphasis put on that fact. But again, I know personally, if I save $200 a pay period, the city saves $600. That, over the amount of employees we have, that adds up to be an awful lot of money.
Counsel, I agree, and we had that discussion a little bit, and I was going to check with Brian, and I will, the treasurer, to see what it was, but we were down pretty low on the people left on Master Medical, and I know at least 3 people switched in our department, and I'll check, it may have been more.
And he even explained, or they even explained to me, that even the ones that are in a second or third one down could be in a 5th or 6th one down. So it wouldn't be just a Blue Cross, it could be what's better for you. I think if the city spent more emphasis on a person-to-person basis or a family-to-family basis and make sure that they have what they need, or get a policy that's right for them, there could be an awful lot of savings. Most people, when it comes to health benefits especially, you'd rather have the best just in case. But when the city's paying 3 times what we're paying, I think it's time for ourselves to look at this a little more closer and help save the city.
I agree with you. I know the treasurer worked very hard on that, and I know a lot of the Master Medical are with the retired people, and I don't know how the outreach went to them, but, you know, it's because the Master Medical covers you when you go out of state, but there is a new plan that covers that and is...
For out of state, right.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Councilor Tran.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief, I'd like to begin by commending you for working with what you have for the past few years. I know it must have been very difficult for you. The FEMA director position, what are the consequences should we incur if we get rid of that position? And can that position be a regional position shared by communities?
As you know, as you probably know, Councilor, Deputy Spano did regionalize that agency between Fitchburg, Leominster, and Lunenburg within the last 3 or 4 years. So we are now a regional LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Commission, and Mike did a good job at doing that. For an example, Mike did it here as part of his training and computer job in the city of Leominster. They have a full-time emergency management with an administrative assistant, $157,000 budget. Lunenburg is a part-time, like similar to us. So we have merged that. They are merged. We have individual laws that we have to comply with here as far as chemicals in our buildings in the city. My plan is to distribute that work amongst myself and the deputies. Some of the day-to-day stuff will be taken on by me. Some of the stuff that record-keeping going out, some of the events that we run will be done by the deputy chiefs. It's a good question. You know, maybe we should approach Leominster, you know, and see if we could tie in with the emergency management director. I know he's a full-time position in Leominster, but that would be something to look into.
I know that you're facing a difficult time coming up with the new budget. It calls for a big reduction, and I have faith in you. I think you'll try your best to handle it. With that said, I also like to add that, you know, I don't blame you, and I don't blame other departments following your presentation to ask to restore some of the reductions. You know, I've been advocating for fairness, and last night we magically found $100,000 to buy vehicles. That surprised me, the order, and I regret participating in that vote. So, you know, I wish you the best of luck with the reductions coming up, the new budget. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could I just run through the numbers that you read early on, because they don't
Yes.
match with my numbers?
Yes.
The FY08 budget that we're currently under in our department is $6,355,755. The 09 budget that I requested was $6,719,793. The 09 budget given was $5,386,518. The difference between the 08 and the 09 budget is $980,237. And the difference between the budget I requested and what I was given is $1,333,275.
Let me defer to the auditor on this.
It might have been an earlier request that you made, and the amount requested was amended.
The FY08 budget was lower than what was given, and it might have been because there was more money put in it. I took it off the status sheet. It's not a huge difference.
Are you saying the revised '08 budget?
The revised 08.
Yeah, I have $6,015,000.
And that include everything, that's all?
Well, it doesn't include the order for the other $60,000. That'll be coming in.
No, this is just off the status sheet. I've got that at 6,355,755.
The revised expense?
For 08 budget. The total, everything, all accounts.
Oh, well, the other reason why it isn't on this page is the accounts that were transferred to IT.
Okay.
That would be it, right?
It could be.
And the telephones?
No, I'm talking about the current budget, the 08 budget was the...
Right.
Mr. President, also, in discussions today with the mayor, she wanted me to inform you folks that the building maintenance accounts that belong to the fire department that were moved to the facilities manager on page 52 will be put back in my budget as $165,000. So she let me know she is doing that. The telephone budget that is in page 23 for $20,000 has been put under the IT. I will still administer that account, but the idea is to negotiate with Verizon and get a better deal for all the phones. So those phone accounts will stay listed under the IT budget on that page, but they'll still be administered until further notice by our department.
We'll follow up on that, Chief. Councilor Joseph?
I guess I don't want to cause any kind of big problem, and I don't want to deal with any integrity problem, but what would it take in order for the city to have a supplemental volunteer fire department? I mean, I know it would probably ruin the integrity. I'm just thinking, for coverage, I would go out and help. I wouldn't go into a fire, that's for sure, but I would hold a line to help one of these guys get to a fire and protect something that's on our side of the city or any part of the city. But is it contractual? Is it, what would prevent the city from having a reserve volunteer fire department civilian to help out the city?
I couldn't sit here tonight and answer that question directly, Council. I can tell you that we have professional firefighters that train every day.
Right.
It's not something you can come in on weekends and do. I think you just saw an article in the paper a few weeks ago where all the little towns are having trouble getting volunteers, and they've all gone to hiring full-time people around the clock. In this city, with what we deal with between EMS, hazmat, all the training and certifications that you require yearly and the training that has to go on each day, it would be very difficult for me to bring on somebody that doesn't do this job every day and get them to a point where they're going to help us with our manning levels. But, I'd certainly look into it. But I can tell you that the trend is going the other way. volunteerism is going the other way, and especially with all the training and certifications. That's what's killing the towns. Our guys train every day, 7 days a week. There's some type of training going on. And not only that, but using your equipment, driving the apparatus, the aerial devices, your air packs, gas monitors, all the things that we have now that go with our profession. You know, it's a whole myriad of things. It's not just turning on a hose anymore, obviously. There's quite a bit to it.
Okay, just throw it out there, because like I said, I for one would help any way that I could, but it wouldn't be very much, because I'm in that aging part with the rest of it.
This is in another.
You guys are safe.
Pretty close. If I may, the only concern I think I would have, and we have the entire law department here tonight, would there not be some type of liability, though, Mr. Solicitor, if I may ask you, if we had a private citizen out there holding a hose and gets whacked on the head with something?
They'd probably, I'd have to look at it more carefully, but they'd probably be municipal employees under the protection of the Chapter 258. So I think the liability might come from the lesser training, you might say, that they would have than a professional firefighter.
Thank you. Councilor Salamito?
Thank you, Mr. President. Evening, Chief. Chief, one of the items that kind of bothers me is, I was looking at the police maintenance for their personnel department. And back in fiscal year 2008, patrolmen made up 80% of their personnel. In 2009, with the anticipated cuts or retirements, patrolmen is still going to make up 80% of their personnel. To the fire department, in 2008 budget, firefighters made up 59% of the personnel. And in the 2009, firefighters will only make up 46% of the personnel. I guess what I'm trying to get at, it almost seems like there are more chiefs than Indians. It's going from 59% of them are firefighters to 46, and then I'm kind of worried, are we going to get to 50%, or there's got to be more deputies, lieutenants, and captains than there are firefighters? And I'm not a firefighter, and I'm not an expert, and I'm sure there's a reason why you need administrators. But I think I did talk to a lot of people when I went around this past summer, and many people did voice a concern that there are some departments with a lot of administrators as compared to online firefighters or police officers, patrolmen on the street. They want patrolmen on the street. They don't want captains bumping into each other. And that issue kind of worries me, and could you address that part?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what you counted the percentages, Council, but this question's been raised before, and I think it's more of the people don't understand how our department works. Virtually everyone goes out the door on a fire call. The deputy, the captains are on trucks, they're officers, they're firefighters. The lieutenants are on trucks, they're officers, they're firefighters. They have additional duties. They are on the trucks and go out the door. They're not sitting in the day job, 8 to 5, sitting at a desk. In fact, the only ones that are doing that is Deputy Spano, who will be leaving, that's upstairs. He goes to fires as the safety officer. Myself, I go to fires. The Fire Prevention Bureau, which is 2 people, does all their code work and their inspection work and all those things. They are our arson investigators. So I don't know what people's perception is, but I can tell you that at fire and emergencies day-to-day basis, 95% of our department is online and they're firefighters. So that just because it's a lieutenant doesn't mean he's sitting at a desk doing nothing. He's out on that company, in charge of that company. He does all the work as a firefighter does, and has additional responsibilities of responsible for the 2 men on his crew, his $400,000 or $800,000 truck, his report writing, his inspection, his training, and it goes up to the captain at the next level. But if you had a fire in this room right now, there'd be captains, lieutenants, and firefighters walking in this door fighting that fire.
And that response pleases me, believe me. And so I guess that's part A, as compared to the police department, where some of the administrators don't go into the barroom fights, or don't go to an accident. But now I come to the financial aspect of it. It's still a lot of money for the lieutenants that are doing the work. I'm not doubting that, and the deputies, but are they not eating up a lot of the budget money? I guess the bottom line, is there anything anticipated in the future where we'll have less lieutenants, less number, less deputies upon retirement? I guess that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
ask.
well, first of all, to answer your question, last year we eliminated 4 lieutenants because
All right.
we eliminated engine company. There's a reason, though. A lieutenant is a company officer, so if we don't have a company from the right on, he's eliminated. This year, as it stands right now, we've eliminated 2 captains. We've eliminated a deputy.
Now, are they not going to be filled again, or is that your anticipation?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
But again, Deputy Spano's job, the one that's not going to be filled, there is work there, and it's going to have to be taken up by somebody and distributed at no increase in pay, or, the work's going to be taken on and done.
I may comment, Counselor. I've had some discussions with Counselor Hay, who is the author of a petition that was sent in and referred to the mayor's office in the previous administration, calling for a study of both police and fire personnel to determine what the manning level should be and how they should be deployed. This should be done by a professional outside firm. We do not have the money right now to do that, but I think we'd be fooling each other if we sat in this room and said, well, we're going to push this aside, because sooner or later, you're going to hear it from a citizen. I've heard it a million times. You got too many firemen. You got too many policemen. You don't have enough cops. You don't have enough firefighters. You have enough. We need to sit down and go through the table of organization to determine what we really need. And then, based on that study, a recommendation has to be made by the mayor to the city council so that we can end this debate, which has been going on for probably 30 years. And I hope that somewhere along the line, we can find the money to do a study, whether it's through an appropriation or something drops out of the sky, or we find a grant to do it. But I think it's important that we do it. It's not fair to the men and women of both the police and fire department. It's not fair to the taxpayers to not have an answer. Councilor Di Natale?
Thank you. Chief, what are your capital needs, capital equipment, and I know you mentioned a couple of things you bought, but what are items that you need down the road that may need
It
it?
reflected, other than the comments on my budget, that we are in need of one staff car. We've got one that's about 10 years old, needs to be replaced, small vehicle, probably under 18,000. But we are in need of a new ladder truck. Our ladder 3 is a fairly new truck, it's 5 years old, but our backup is 28 years old, and it's failing us. We went to use it the other day, and the stabilizers once again failed. We have to machine parts for it because it's so old. So we're in need of another ladder truck.
How much does that cost?
About $750,000 range. An engine company is also about $350,000, but we've been applying to a federal grant, and if we get that grant, it's an 80% pay by the feds. So I'd like to let that go another year or so, because we came pretty close to getting that grant last year. So our biggest need probably right now is another ladder company.
And building-wise, infrastructure of your
Building-wise,
stations?
North Street's pretty good. Oak Hill Station's in need of replacement. The brick is crumbling, the trucks are too big for the building. We've got a lot of issues up there. We keep it up good. It's got new roofs, new windows, new doors, new furnace, but the physical structure itself, it's 110 years old. Mr. President, if I could just adjust one thing you said, that we do have one individual in that department that has been pursuing some of the private business in town to donate some money for such a study as you referred to, and would welcome that. Because one of the things that's always gone on in the last 5, 6, 7 years is when we've had cuts, I've been able to call other chiefs in other departments, same city size as us, same population, same demographics, same area, and say, how do you do this, how do you man this? Those days are gone. I can't find another city that's running on a $5.3 million budget with 70 firefighters and a $200,000 overtime account. anybody knows one that exists, give me a call, and I'll gladly talk to them and see what they do.
Chief, I have a question. I know we have done this in the past. I can't understand why the state is not helping us with regard to fire protection at Fitchburg State College. We have 2 high-rises there, maybe 3 high-rises if you use the library. We are protecting the State College fire protection. And I know how many times we respond to the college, whether it's a real alarm or a false alarm. And I believe that the state should have some responsibility in providing us some equipment to assist them should we have a major fire in one of those high-rises. Because I think you know, and I don't know that much about firefighting, but I think the common person knows that one ladder company isn't going to be able to evacuate that whole building if it's burning at the lower levels.
I agree with you, Council. We're the only game in town for the college, and there's nobody else that helps us. We're the ones up there, and we had that discussion with Senator Antonioni and Representative Gogan a few years back. And the other side of it is that a lot more of the property that's being bought up is non-taxable once the college gets it. So it's taken away on the other end. The college is a great institution here in the city, but there are some downsides, and I don't get any money in my budget from the college. But at that time, the cities and towns in Massachusetts that had prisons were getting fire trucks. So the suggestion was maybe if we brought in a prison, we could pick up a few things. State colleges get nothing.
Can we not send a letter to the Public Safety Commissioner in Massachusetts and see if we can do something about it?
I certainly can.
Thank you.
Talking about the Secretary of Public Safety.
Secretary of Public Safety, yes. Councilor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could we not save a firefighter, on-the-line firefighters, if we looked into having some sort of communications center? Or am I just being too simplistic?
Councilor, in 1996, we did a study with Fitchburg, Leominster, Lunenburg, and Westminster. There was a grant from the Massachusetts Area Regional Planning Commission. And we all got together on a number of occasions. It's rather a thick book, actually. They reported out on it. I gave the mayor a copy recently. And it was very difficult to bring all the parties together. Police have their issues in their building with what they do with their dispatches, and the towns have their issues. But recently, I know the mayor convened a meeting with the same group, Massachusetts Area Regional Planning Commission, and the city of Fitchburg, and I believe the town of Ashland, that very discussion. Because some new money came out under the 911 laws that provides money for such a study. So I know we are looking into that. We've got a beautiful dispatch center down there, but we've only got one dispatcher left in it. So we've got the facility, and actually under Homeland Security money, we just got a full dispatch console down in our Emergency Operations Center. I think some of you have seen it downstairs. So we actually have a 5 dispatcher position in our building right now. But that is being pursued from a regional level. And there's all kinds of ways it's done. I think in Essex County and Barnstable County, the sheriff's departments are running the dispatch center for some people. State police runs some dispatch up in the upper end of the state. Peterson up there is a regional dispatch by state police. So there are other options, no question about it. And we are pursuing it.
I think it should be pursued. Thank you.
Councilor, it's in its infancy. It is being pursued. I attended that meeting with the mayor, representative of Fitchburg Fire Department, Chief DeMora, and some people in town government in Ashby who are interested. Hopefully this will grow. There will be some contractual issues that have to be ironed out and a lot of financial dancing around, but hopefully within a few years something might be able to be done to have a regional dispatch center, which would save every community a lot of money. Further questions for the chief? Councilor DiMartino.
I'm very glad that the upkeep of your building is going back to you because you do such a wonderful job. I thought it was very foolish to take it out to begin with, but I'm very glad that somebody's seen the errors of the way and returned it. And on a different note is to go back to Fitchburg State College. Through you, Mr. President, I would like to know, to go back the past 4 years, how many properties the Fitchburg State College bought in our area, and how many pieces of land and property they took off our tax base. And I was wondering if you could send a letter to the mayor to ask that request for us, because it keeps coming up all the time. We're losing a tax base because of the Fitchburg State College. Now, we all love the college, but the reality is, just like the fire, they go up, they have our services, we do the streets. We have to come up and say to the state, we don't mind you taking over, but we want something back. So if we could get the exact amount of houses and land that they have bought and have taken off of our tax roll, I think it would give us a little bit of ammunition to go to the state and say, can you give us something back? Thank you, that's what I wanted to say.
I'll personally follow up on that for you, Councillor.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Boivin.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, this is minuscule, but I just kind of need an answer of some sort. On your gas and oil account, I notice it's gone up 14%.
Should be more.
And you have taken, apparatus off the road as well?
Well, we have not yet. We haven't taken-
But you're going to
It's
be.
potential that it does, yeah,
Yeah.
it's potential. But by the same token, Council, the engine out of Central's gonna be running on, somebody's still going into that area all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we're not losing any calls on it. Somebody's going to the calls in that area, and it's gonna be more gas, actually, because it's gonna be coming from.
I just wondering why, that's
Yep.
all. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Councillor Starr.
Following up on the Fitchburg State College question, I live right near the college. Probably hear fire trucks 2, maybe 3 times a week responding to various amounts of calls. Is there any way that we could find out, following up on also what Councillor DiMartino stated, so we can have some solid numbers as to the responses?
I provided Councilor Connery with the false alarm rate. A lot of the calls, Councilor, in the college buildings aren't really false alarms. They burn food and things, and the systems are working the way they should work. But we can easily print out for you all the runs into all the college buildings, all the college-owned buildings. You know, a lot of kids-
Coming down here in the last 2 weeks, I drive through the college, and I've seen 2 separate times in the last week, 10 days, coming down to meetings here, and there's been fire trucks responding up to the college.
Councilor, do you like fire and medical?
No, both times, I believe, one was on Highland Ave and one was on North Street.
Yeah, I mean, for the statistic do you want the fire and medical breakdown?
I think you should separate 2 of them. I imagine you send out 2 more than one apparatus for particular calls. Am I right?
Different calls require different types of apparatus and different amounts, yes.
Okay.
But I can provide you with, I'll separate the medical and fire, and I'll break it down for you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Council will send it to you.
Chief, I want to thank you for coming in, and thank the members of the department who are here in great numbers to hear what council has to say and understand what is being done with this budget, and commend you for the work that you do for the citizens of Fitchburg, and we will follow up on some of the questions that you and the councilors have asked. Thank you.
Mr. President, I thank you, and I know I've met with a number of you in the last few weeks, and I know I'm going to meet with a number more in the next few weeks, and I appreciate you taking your time to listen to our cause and our difficulties. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to call the members of the Law Department, City Solicitor Ciota, and his able assistant, John Barrett. Let's see. We have, I'll run it down, the city solicitor, FY08, $56,868. Fiscal 09, $96,000. Assistant city solicitor, FY08, $45,492. And FY09, $45,962 for personal services. The law expenses, FY08, $112,500. There are some, a step in there, $118,357, COLA $109,000, FY09 mayor request is $98,000. Law expenses, FY08, $255,860. The step is $268,217, $269,200 for the FY09 request, and the FY09 mayor request, $257,700. Before we get into the questions on the numbers, I would like to ask Mr. Ciota and his assistant if they would like to make an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. The law department is really two people. We don't have a place, which will become relevant when we talk about the expenses. But the two and a labor attorney that is on an hourly basis. The law department probably gets into every aspect of municipal life in terms of government life. And I was trying to reflect on what we've done. We are involved in the city's litigation, opinion, and consultation to department heads, employees, mayor, council, ordinance drafting. Every week I'm here at the City Hall about at least 3 times a week for several hours at a time, making rounds, talking to people, to keep up, find out what's happening, to keep up with what's going on. We deal with workers' comp, employment issue, labor, Board of Health, school department, parks, bankruptcy cases. One thing we've initiated since January is it was a slow start in the first months, but picking up is a much more aggressive legal strategy for tax collection. We consult with the assessors and deal with zoning, contracts, procurement, every aspect of the city's life. I think during the course of that time, in talking about the 4 months that I've been here, we have done some concentrated effort on increasing dollars that are brought in. John has settled the number of cases, resolved some claims, and we've brought in some tax collection money. I think coming a high priority for the next year for us is going to be enhanced tax collection and a focus on the law department becoming more involved in labor employment stuff, picking up things that were handled by previous labor lawyer and doing them ourselves, and we are much more heavily involved, I think, with the current labor lawyer. There's regular consultation and reports from him. And in our efforts to keep our focus together, John and I regularly, on a very regular basis, meet, consult, share cases, share strategies, what's going on, so that we can have a unified approach with what we have. I think the part of the issue for the law department is that there is so much in terms of legal need for the city that there's going to have to be some prioritizing for what we do. So I think that it's preventive stuff, preventing litigation, dealing with problems before they surface into claims with personnel, or employment issues, and consulting with the mayor and department heads on those kinds of matters. In addition to that, I think we have a pretty aggressive strategy for our own continuing self-education and for dealing with legislative efforts, some on the area of, as you may know, the open meeting law, consulting with the government, the Attorney General, and giving opinions on the new statute coming out. But that's just one of the many bills that we get involved with. So I think for every single contact we have where someone asks a question, in addition to that, there's a factual investigation, legal research, often consultation with each other, and then sometimes drafting and editing and reviewing contract or whatever. So our work is varied and requires fairly constant continued self-education. So I think looking forward to the next year, I think we've given you our priorities in our budget plan, and I think we hope to implement them and reduce the city's expenses in the labor. That's a goal I'm hoping we can achieve.
Care to say anything, Mr. Barrett?
I really can't add too much to what Michael said, Mr. President. I guess the thing is that we do work as a team, I think, and I think maybe this is something that should be reconsidered, but I think, quite frankly, we're pretty open to consultation and talking with other city solicitors and in terms of the accessibility that we have to city department heads, the council, and just generally city employees. I think we're pretty accessible. And from what I've heard, in many towns, that doesn't happen. And quite frankly, some of that is you might be able to deal with a simple question, now resolve it, and people go on their way. And I think it works well in trying to prevent future problems. Hopefully, most of the time, but not always. But that's, I can't think, not to delay things tonight, I can't add too much more to what Mike said. We'd probably get into it, but before people start asking questions, I think, though, that there was an error or something in the top line there. I have to mention this because it has a particular bearing on me, where the top line was $45,492 for the assistant city solicitor. I believe it should actually be $60, which is reflected in the body of the budget. And I'll defer to Michael, but largely what's happening there is, as you'll notice, the law expense category has been largely eliminated. The clerical, administrative, and office supplies has been eliminated, and the funds there have been redistributed, basically. That reflects now closer to reality in terms of those budget items. That was compensation to the city solicitor and the assistant city solicitor for our expenses. So it essentially was the same thing. But I just wanted to mention that because there is that discrepancy between the top line there and the body of the budget.
I'd just like to make a comment before we get into the questions. I have had the opportunity to probably bug the city solicitor more than any other council president in the past few years. And I just want to say that both Mr. Ciotta and Mr. Barrett have responded quite rapidly to the questions that we have. And I think that this helps this council in making their decisions a bit more faster. And I just want to thank you for that. And with that, I will point to Councilor Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Will the law department now be working with the school department as far as their negotiation, or will the school department continue to have their own labor negotiator?
That's a good question. The Chapter 71, the statute that governs schools, has at least 3 sections that which allow the school department to hire their own attorney, and the city has no, says the SJC, has no authority to interfere with that. In other words, they can choose to hire an attorney within their budget for their purposes. It's my understanding that they, I know they certainly have their own labor councils now, and what they will do in the future, that's up to the school committee. It's their legal prerogative. The law department has historically, and certainly in the 4 months that I've been here now, been involved consulting with the school on, the superintendent in particular, on legal issues that the school has faced as part of our work.
But in Chapter 71, it says that they can have their own...
They have their own exclusive authority to hire counsel, the school committee does.
Thank you, Mike.
All set, Counselor?
Thank you.
Counselor Caddy?
I, too, have commend both of you. When we ask a question or I call, you get right back, and it's very good. And so don't be offended by this question. I'd like to ask it. City solicitors typically have been considered part-time. What do you consider yourself now? Do you consider yourself full-time? And the question is for both of you. Do you consider yourself a full-time, or do you consider yourself part-time?
It's a hard question to, let me see if I can give you an answer. I continue to have a private practice. I have 2 partners. I've had a firm in the city for about 27 years. The city's income, the salary I get from the city, could not support my continued presence in that partnership. Nor would it be enough to fund the law practice. So my work for the city, from one perspective, the city is a client. I never think of it that way because it's sort of part of my blood. It's like, I don't think of the city as a client. I think of the city as, I don't know how you would say it. I am creating the city with everyone else here and every other department. It's a joint venture. And for that, I get the privilege of serving the city. And to me, so am I full-time? If you look at my hours, I work at least a 10-hour day, and often many more than that. And probably 35, 40, 45% of my time is spent directly for the city. Some days it's full 10, 12 hours, and other days it's less. But every day it's many significant hours. So it's hard to answer the question in a straightforward way about am I a full-time or not a full-time. I devote my full conscious energy to the city, and I don't consider myself, I consider myself a 24/7 city solicitor. So that if the mayor needed something, some kind of emergency, I'm there. So it's hard to answer that way. I don't know how you would answer.
Pretty much the same. It's kind of a unique thing because it's some days everything you can spend all your time on the city. Some days I don't spend any time on the city. I do some other work, and as Michael said, I would not be able to support my practice solely on the income from the city. But I do feel a great, affinity with the city, and as it's my, like Mike said, my primary client, but I don't think of the city as client. I think, especially working with Michael, it's more of a team, and it's almost more of an avocation in municipal law, which if it could be managed, that you get a full-time law department, that would be great. But the practical realities of it is it's the expense of, running a law practice, and historically the way it's been with Fitchburg and most middle-sized cities is that you have someone also somewhat subject to the political vagaries because you know, if you find that you're no longer working in this position, now you have to restart your law practice. So if it were a full-time position. I think it's been a historical compromise, if you will, between, you know, sometimes we are full-time, but we're not exclusively employed by the city.
The answer to that, I think, I charge an hourly fee, a significant hourly fee, and I do private clients. And I did a quick look at, in the last couple of months, the time I spent working for the city, the hours, which I don't recall offhand, had I charged my regular hourly fee, would have been significantly more than this annual budget.
Something else, since I've been here as a counselor, I've seen years where a labor negotiator, you couldn't even figure out how much we were paying because it was a lot. And from the beginning, since I've been here, I've always been one hoping that we could try to reduce that labor negotiator. It's dropped 61% in this budget. It went from $103,000 down to $40,000. Do you foresee that we could even do better than that in the future as you become more educated in labor negotiations?
It's 40 and 40.
80.
It's 80.
It's 82.
One of the things.
The second one said supplies, so I didn't...
It said, it's labor.
Supplemental.
Supplemental.
Okay.
And what this is, in discussions with the mayor, is that one of the things I told you when we did the appropriation, supplemental appropriation for the labor lawyer, was it January, February, I don't recall, was that I really wanted to get a handle on that. And I have regular contact with Peter Berry. We talk, I ask him where he is in the budget, I keep track of that. He will come within the appropriation this year, close, but he'll come within it. And the reason we have the two categories is there will be straight 40,000 for the labor lawyer, and that other 40,000 will be a discretionary. It's something that we will control in an effort to reduce the necessity for outside counsel. And one of the things that we have started to pick up more and will continue to pick up more, a lot of things were referred to the labor lawyer that didn't need to get referred, in my opinion. I know I don't mean to disparage anyone, but that I felt I could do and should do within the city budget. And we're trying to pick up more of that.
That was my point. It seemed, and if you had a question from a labor attorney, and you call him and you get your answer, well, the next time the question comes up, you're not going to have to call him, or you're not going to have to hire him. So I'm saying, as you become more educated, hopefully this line item starts to reduce, maybe not this year, but maybe next year, it should hopefully start to reduce. Because I do think there's a lot that happened with the labor negotiator that it didn't need to go to him.
I think one thing too, Counselor, I think we're hoping to try to encourage a system where if questions come up, they'll come to us first. We may, as Mike said, we may well be able to handle it. If it's something that we can handle, then then we would go out to the outside labor council.
And sometimes it can be handled by a consult.
A consult, yeah.
But as you said, we don't have the answer. We can just consult with the labor attorney and get the answers and then just deal with it. But by what that means, I think we hope to reduce that item.
Yeah, just to get back to this 103,000 in FY08, 103,000 in my memory, we spent a lot more than that years ago, especially when you get a contract year. During the contract year, I've seen that figure double. So hopefully we don't need to go there with you guys. Hopefully you can save us some money there, I hope.
That's a hope.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Di Natale?
Thank you. Could you kindly provide a justification of why the total amount of both salaries increased by $55,000? It says FY08, $56,000 for the city solicitor, and that's being bumped up by $40,000. The increases.
Don gave a brief explanation of that before. This is simply moving the item from expense to personal services. It's the same dollars. In the past, the city had a budget item, a line item for personal services and a line item for law expense, clerical, administrative, office supplies, travel and meetings. When I bill a client, I bill you the hourly rate, and I use that for my own office expenses in part. And so we will pay my secretary and my legal research tools and so on. The city was paying us separating out those elements. And it was kind of imaginary anyway, because the amount of funds wasn't, for my staff, it didn't make any realistic sense to my staff. So they were just shifted to salary rather than the expense item, because it was more realistic. And secondly, I think it brought the lawyer salaries up to starting to bring them to a more comparable level to other newer department heads.
On that, this year's budget for expenses, clerical, administrative, and office supplies, clerical administrative was $35,000, office supplies is $3,000. That's $38,000.
Right.
The total of these two salaries is going up $55,000. If that is the case, I would expect that it would only go up $38,000 if we're not having office supplies or clerical administrative, not $55,000. Also on that note, through April, clerical and administrative costs have been incurred $20,000 out of $35,000, only 56% spent, barring any encumbrances, with about a $15,000 underrun through April, which will probably be around 10 or 7. The point I'm getting here is that the two line item accounts are $38,000. One of those is underrunning right now by a good amount, but the two salaries are being increased by a total of $55,000, and the difference is around $20,000. I heard the last part of your statement about having it more comparable to other areas. That concerns me only because of the situation we're in. So the $38,000 that's being transferred from those two accounts to the salary, at a maximum, for me, would make more sense than having it at $55,000. Personally, I'm not gung-ho about the $55,000 in total. But in my own personal suggestion down the road will probably be that we reduce those by that difference. Again, those two accounts this year was $38,000. We haven't spent all of that, and yet we're increasing $55,000 because of the transfer. I know it's not the only reason, but it's hard for me to go along with that.
Essentially, Counselor, I believe the bottom line is level funded for all intents and purposes. I think some of the money was taken from the labor because we were assuming some of the labor, so it was just shifted from one column to another to account for that fact as well. So, but there is not, from the point of view of the recipient of these funds, John and I, there is not really a net increase.
Well, based on the explanation, it was because to complement the competitiveness of the market in your area, and because of those two items that are now zeroed out. And all I'm saying is that the $38,000 this year has been zeroed out, and the difference between that is $17,000. So the $17,000 is to compensate for the market. At this time, I don't know about that $17,000 right off the bat. That's just my opinion.
It's not only compensating for the market, it's also taking it from labor because we're assuming some of the...
Well, okay, I'm glad you brought that up because the labor now you've got a supplement for labor negotiating as well, $40,000. So, excuse me, $40,000. So the salaries are going up by $55,000 in total, and an additional $40,000 we're putting in for both of you to support labor negotiation. The way I see that, Mike, is that That's a $96,000 increase, in my opinion, based on the line items, not so much the total. What you guys are making now, as compared to next year, we're adding the 55 on the salary line, and then we're adding another 40 for the labor negotiation.
But Counselor, I don't think, we're not adding anything on labor. I mean, if you look at the labor previously, as Counselor Caddy mentioned, it's been much greater in the past, but last year it was 97. There's one item, and then it was split up. The proposal was to split it up into 2 categories, and then it was proposed to reduce that further, because we believe we'll be taking over more of that expense. So it's not like we're getting an additional 40,000 for labor. It's sort of.
I guess it's the way it's put on here.
It is.
I still have an issue with the 55.
Counselor, if I may, if you yield to the mayor, and let the mayor explain this.
It gets slightly more confusing because I also changed their budget, because you can see the mayor's budget is different from what they requested. The difference between their budget and the budget that I propose, I transferred a number of line items into the personal services line item. All those line items were in their original budget. So it's the last 2 lines that you see totaling 50,000. So if you have a difference of opinion, it's really between 50,000 and 55,000. And I transferred within the department about 38,500 between the clerical, administrative, and office supplies, which are what they would normally include in a fee. $500 from registry and other fees, because I know that they also incorporate a number of fees already, plus $10,000 with the labor negotiator, and then another $1,000 for arbitration and mediation. Those are all services that are directly attributed to them. Those are the ones that I use them for. I go to them for arbitration, for filing, for clerical, you name it. Everything associated with legal services. So all those amounts total 50,000. I transfer that up into the personal services line. So I just want to make that clear, that the other numbers that you're throwing around, the net is 50, not 38 or whatever numbers you're throwing out there. And I also did do a calculation on what we did explore all sorts of different options for legal services, and this was by far the least expensive. It was the least expensive, period, and it was also the most hours in terms of any other options. So least expensive, most services, and frankly, never mind that, but the quality is phenomenal. The response time, the accessibility, just the really great knowledge of legal stuff. And I just, if I could quantify the amount of money that they've saved the city, I would do that. But they are, I think everybody here knows how really invaluable their services are. And the day one, what they walked into was a enormous amount of backlog of things. And I know that Mike is too shy to say this, but I've asked him, I said, how many hours are you working a week? And it's at least 40 every week. And it's just a lot of work that every single department, every single city councilor, all the boards and commissions, I mean, there's just so many issues that we're working on in-house. So we are not going to get better quality legal services for this price, because I've looked. And in terms of moving that 50,000 and then another 5 into the personal services, that is to reflect the reality, that is to reflect the going rate for one's personal services, all the other lines of which are in there. And one of the reasons why the city solicitor knows so much about what is going on with labor negotiations, because I've put him in charge of that in order to put a ceiling on the price. And we have 8 of 9 unions that we're negotiating with for contracts, and 9 of 9 for other budgetary purposes. Plus, in addition, I know on the school committee side, we have a labor attorney, but we don't have regular legal services. Those are all things that the city solicitor has done for us for free on his own time. So we have basically for something that is 4% less than last year, we are getting an infinite amount more and better quality legal services.
Thank you. Now that I know that, the clerical administrative line this year is underrunning by 15,000. Do we have anything major on the horizon?
That's expected to be all spent by the end of the year, all the 44,000.
The labor supplement, are you guys expecting to reach the 80,000 mark between you both and the labor negotiator, or is that a number that you feel confident you won't have to come back for a supplement at the end of the year? Based on what you've described about the different functions and what you'll be taking on, are we going to, I mean, your expert opinion, do you see that going beyond 80? Are we going to have to get a supplement for that number?
It's hard to predict that with any degree of accuracy, but I think our goal is, I can tell you what our goal is. Our goal is to minimize that as much as possible by increasing our role in that. And by having, as the mayor said, this supervisory kind of role with our labor attorney. I can't say. I do know that all of these contracts are up next year and have to be negotiated. So that's a huge amount of work, especially when the city is in such an economic situation. The funds have to be saved in those contracts. So it's going to take, it takes a lot of work. It took a lot of work this year because of the impact bargaining, because of restructuring and everything else that the city went through.
Okay, well, I would just like to make a suggestion for future consideration that 10,000 be removed from the labor supplement, based on being told about the $5,000 increase above the 50,000, and also because last year's council appropriated $42,000 to start for labor. Obviously, that went higher, but because of the new labor attorney that we have at a lower rate, and because the city solicitor, and I know he doesn't know, can't predict with certainty what's going to fall in, but they're going to work very hard to meet that number. I'm just making a suggestion for future consideration. We drop that by 10,000. Thank you.
Councilor Starr.
Most of my questions have been answered, thank you. But the number 200,000 jumps out at me. I believe something you gave us a few months back in money that was spent on contract negotiations in the past. Is that accurate, or am I off on that? 200,000 for, maybe it was over the course of it, I think 1 year to the outside attorney that you brought in contracts. Is that inaccurate? Because the other expenses just didn't seem to match up with those numbers that I remember from the past, and I wish I had it in front of me.
Labor negotiations, labor.
That would fall under the other expenses. Okay. So the number 200,000 jumped out at me. So hopefully, with all these unions that need contracts, you guys are really going to be earning your money. And I guess the other thing is, you know, the numbers jumped out at me, and it was really the perception with the problems, with the financial straits that we're in. Fortunately, the mayor and you explained things and made them a lot more clear to me. So that's most of my
Councilor,
questions.
that $200,000 was for both the city and the school, I believe. And Councilor DiMartino and I both, in the last administration, asked those questions because the councilor and I were both concerned with the heavy expenditures for outside legal fees. And I have every confidence that that probably will not happen this year.
Well, that's good to hear, because I had received some information from a Gardner City Councilor who had supplied me with stuff from Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, and other communities, and we were outspending at least Leominster and Gardner by over $200,000 on outside labor negotiation, and it's nice to see that at least right now that's cut down and we have our negotiators in-house, I guess. So I guess that's about it.
I also would caution you to take into consideration that, anything can happen this year where we may need legal representation other than contract negotiations. And having had some experience personally in the past couple of years, we know what those fees can be. And I think we are getting a bargain here. Our overall budget is going to be down 4%. So we just have to hang in there and see what happens over the next fiscal year. Councilor Joseph?
Just want to start off with you guys are a bargain at any price. And just to talk to Mr. President's comment earlier, the former city solicitor was on speed dial with my telephone, and I always got a speed dial response back. So I've always been very happy with the services that have been provided by our city solicitors.
Mr. Joseph, may I just interrupt and say that I was not making any remarks about the former city solicitor. I'm just talking about what is happening right now.
Yep. And I just have a question again, and I just want to know, on the city solicitor labor supplement, is that $40,000 earmarked to be divided between you and the assistant city solicitor, or you, the assistant city solicitor, and the labor negotiator, or is this mainly earmarked for the labor negotiator?
It could be a combination of those. I think it's meant to give us control over dollars so that we can wean or move to weaning from outside counsel as much as possible. So it could be, and I think this would be done in consultation with the mayor, obviously. It could be that we would say, we need you to do this, Mr. Outside Counsel, okay? Or it could be that at that point, we would be assuming some particular matter, and then we would bill that.
Okay, so that's what you foresee, that in sometime within FY09, you may, if you work on a labor issue, bill that line item separate?
Yes, but I think that's I'm hoping that is a transitional process. Much of it could be for the outside counsel, but it enables us to do this transition by giving us the fiscal control. Does that make sense?
It just muddies the waters even more. In the past, was any of the labor negotiators' money in the past paid to our former city solicitor?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so the former city solicitor's pay was equivalent to $90,000 with their but now the current city solicitor's position could be up to $130,000 if you were to bill that whole
In theory,
$40,000.
it could be, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen, for appearing.
Excuse me?
Councilor DiMartino, are you hiding under the desk there? I can't see you.
I have had my hand up 3 times, and you have ignored me twice.
I'm very sorry. Will you accept
Don't
my...
do it again.
Will you accept my apology?
I will, but don't
All
do
right.
it again.
Councilor DiMartino, you're on.
Thank you. First of all, welcome back, Mike, and I'm very glad you're here, and I know what your quality is, and also to your assistant. So now I'm going to ask some questions because I'm a little confused. The last city solicitor got $56,868,000. Am I correct? By these numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get and you're going to get 91.
The last solicitor got 56,868.
Yes.
Plus the items you see under law.
Yeah, the 35, the clerical and all of that, right? But you're going to go to 91.
That's correct.
Okay. The assistant city solicitor got 45,492, and he's going to 60. And of course, that goes under. the labor negotiation and all of that comes to $82,000 for those three together on the law and other expenses. That's for the labor negotiator. The other people. 82, it comes to 82 when you add in the 2,000, right? Yeah, okay. When he was hired, how much was he hired for? Per hour?
Do you mean the Peter Berry?
Yeah.
175.
175. And he was a part-time, and he only came in when he's necessary, right, to work with negotiations?
He comes in as necessary, usually in conjunction with the mayor, and talks to me for whatever he needs to do. That's correct.
Okay. Now, that line item last year at the same thing was 103,357. That's what we gave Mr. Greg Angelini, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Is that not an increase rather than a decrease for this particular, by hour? Because he was on full-time. I'm only asking the question now, so that you can clear it up.
The outside counsel is on a full-time basis.
No.
They're typically on a per need or per case basis. So.
Billing hourly.
And billing hourly. The former counsel billed at a higher rate than the present counsel.
Okay, good. And then you're saying that your fee is added into, because you no longer got your clerical administrator and all of these things on the lower part. Who's going to do that work?
Which work?
A clerical administrative.
Same people.
It's just within our offices.
So the same people are going to get it, and they're in your office.
Right. We don't have a separate clerical.
So you're going to be paying them out of the money you're getting?
We do now, yeah.
You hire me, you get my staff, my partners as my backup and my administrative support, bookkeeping support, secretarial support, consultation support from my partners.
So you have the total right to know who's going to be the clerical administrative and everything to do with the office. You're in charge of that?
Yes.
That's right. I want to be clear, I just want to know that. Yeah.
We are the office, but most people who have called my office on a regular basis will get Gene. And we'll speak to Gene, who will assist them in various ways.
Has this the other part of the question is, has this anything to do with your private practice? It's totally separate.
I think, Counselor, it sort of reflects the time that our support staff spend. I mean, in a sense, we're simply, I guess, recognizing the fact that this is what it costs to manage the city's legal matters, whether it's broken up as office expense and clerical, which we then actually take and use to pay our staff. Regardless, I mean, it can't be broken out. It's not. If what you're trying to suggest is, or
I'm not trying to suggest anything. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, it's not paying our private secretary for private work. It's paying our secretarial staff or administrative staff for the work we're doing for the city.
I just want to be clear, because the people out there don't see the budget, they don't see all this, and this is why I'm asking the questions, because a lot of people look at this television and they want to know, all they would see here was, oh, that guy went from 56 to 91. That's what they see.
Right.
And you've got to understand that they don't see what we see, and we have to explain it, and that's why I'm asking you these questions, because I was confused, and if I'm confused, they may be confused too.
So let me see if I can, in the budget, in last year, the years before, there would be that expense item for administrative, secretarial.
Yeah, I have it here.
Clerical, and so on. So what would happen is, I would say, well, my secretarial staff, I work X hours for the city a year. My secretarial staff supports me Y hours in that endeavor. So you could think of it conceptually as the expenses, clerical expenses going to support that. It's a sort of a fiction in a way, because when a lawyer charges a fee, that fee includes profit, if you will, and the cost of maintaining the office. So I could say, well, I'm going to charge you a fee, Andy DiMartino, of X dollars and Y dollars for my expenses, meaning my office expenses. And that's what was going on before. This simply just brings it together.
I just want to ask those questions, because a lot of people have asked them. Thank you very much.
Did you get a satisfactory answer?
I don't know yet, but I'll let you know. Thank you.
Any further questions, Counselor?
No.
Does anyone else have any questions for the Law Department? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Does anyone prefer to have a 5-minute break, or shall we go right into the Human Resources budget? We'll resume in 5 minutes. Councilors, I'd like to resume deliberations on the budget and welcome Mr. Bernard Stevens, Human Resources Director, and ask you, Mr. Stevens, if you would like to make an opening statement.
I will, and as you can see, I brought my team with me also.
I noticed you got your whole department is with you.
My whole department is here tonight, so we're 100% behind.
Tell them not to make a lot of noise, though, while
I
you're
will.
talking.
Just an opening statement. The City of Fitchburg Human Resource Department strives to provide a fair, equitable administration and employment practices to all city employees. The Human Resource Department promotes open communication among employees and departments and implements practices and policies to ensure a safe, productive, viable workforce. Rather than going through the functions, I will say that in addition to the functions listed in your budget, I also oversee the random drug testing for all CDL drivers, and of course I'm involved with all of the negotiations.
Swear.
Councilors, on page 16 is Mr. Stevens' budget. I think we've all had an opportunity to look at it, and I would like to open it up for questions. Councilor DiMartino, do you have a question?
Mr. Di Natale was before me.
Well, let's make an exception if he'll yield to you, ladies before gentlemen, tonight.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say it's an honor to work with you on an almost daily basis, Mr. Stevens. When you were hired, I was very happy, and as I got to know you, I understood what a quality person you are. I don't usually praise people, especially on camera, but I think praise coming to you is overdue, and I would like to say that. And I also would like to know how you do the job without any help.
It takes an effort, but I think it's worth it, and try to do the best job that I can. And I'm glad that it's appreciated.
It's appreciated by me. That's why I bring you soup. Thank you.
Soupola.
Councilor Di Natale.
Thank you. Mrs. Stevens, just a quick question on training. It's going up 200%. It's not a big amount, but what's the reason for that?
Sure, absolutely. The training, if you look back to the page 15, you'll see that some of these training initiatives that I will accomplish this year involve the customer service training, telephone customer service program, business etiquette, work-life program, and as a matter of fact, the fitness program, a wellness program that we're going to launch tomorrow. And certainly you're all invited. It starts at 12 o'clock at the Council on Aging. So those are the initiatives I'd like to get going. And yes, it is a little bit higher than last year, but I think overall the service to the community will be much better.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Stevens? Councilor Hay.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to say that I appreciate the service aspects that the Human Resource Department is looking at to provide better service to all the residents, to the employees of the city. And I know that, now certainly is not the time with the budget constraints that we have, but I hope that the mayor and the finance team and the city council understands that human resources, it can be a money saver for a city and for an organization or a company. When you have good human resources and you have the manpower and you have the staff to do it correctly, it far exceeds its costs in the savings that it does for your organization. the savings it does for people who are out sick and collecting workman's comp and all of those types of things that a good human resource department does. So I think it's something in the long run that I hope we look at expanding and giving Mr. Stevens some staff and some help. And I think that will surely be cost-effective, because in a good human resource department it is. And Mr. Stevens has shown as a one-man shop what he can do for us. With some help, I expect that those savings would grow by leaps and bounds, and I hope down the road that the administration is looking at doing that. Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, may I ask, talked about this wellness program that's going to be kicked off tomorrow at the Senior Citizens Center.
That's correct.
Could you give us just a flavor of what is going to be happening there?
Well, first of all, this program is in conjunction with MOC, Monitoring Opportunity Council, and basically it's a health screening. There'll be blood pressure. This is basically for city employees, city hall employees, wastewater. We could not include the police and fire, but the major departments in the city. And there'll be, again, blood pressure, screening, other tests that are going to be supplied to us by Health Alliance Hospital and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. As a matter of fact, one of the tests that I looked into that I'm really thrilled about having is a test for skin cancer. There's a machine that basically you can basically put your face in, and it will take a photograph and will identify any problems that you may have before they occur. So we're pretty pleased about the whole operation.
Very good. Maybe some of us need to have our blood pressure checked as a result of the budget.
Well, it may not be a bad idea.
Speak for yourself, Mr. President.
And encourage city employees to attend that. It sounds like it's going to be very, very knowledgeable.
We've been promoting the program for about the last week and a half in conjunction with Andy Roy and myself. We're heading it up, and Andy has also been very instrumental in getting this up and running.
I'd like to, before we close, also, councilors, remind that everyone that tomorrow at 11 a.m. at Riverfront Park, the Massachusetts Secretary of Environmental Affairs, Ian Bowles, will be there to talk about the Rivers Act, and it'll be hosted by the mayor. And if you haven't seen your email, there is an invitation there for 11 tomorrow at Riverfront Park. Councilor Clark.
Mr. President, thank you. One more question for Bernie, and it was actually a statement that the President made earlier. We had talked about trying to get a representative in the room for negotiations, just as an observer. President Connery said earlier that there was some state regulation against that.
Well,
either you want to clarify
I believe
that
maybe Councilor Hay probably can fill us in a little bit. Do you recall a couple of years ago when there was a statement made that we needed to have a representative sitting in on negotiations? I think it was brought up by the late Councilor Herman Burke. He thought that we should have somebody sitting in on negotiations, but the previous mayor said that we could sit there, but we couldn't say anything, and we didn't have any voting privileges, and that it was confidential. Maybe you could confirm this. If you don't have the answer this evening, then maybe you can get back to us on it.
I can get back to you, but I suspect that it has something to do with the separation of power, the executive branch as opposed to the legislative branch. I suspect that's why it wouldn't be appropriate.
Thank you. Anything else, councilors? Tomorrow evening, we begin at 7. We have elderly services, youth and recreation, Library Services, and the Veteran Services Division.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion